Alright, this is just a demonstration of a Magic Find build that I use. It's Tornado Shot. Windripper Tornado Shot, so nothing special there, but I do use Skirmish, which is a really nice complementary path to take if you're running Deadeye. The reason is because the +1 chain doesn't make you more of a threat to reflect if you're using Totems, and you can still do single target damage with the Frenzy setup. On top of double totems, tornado shots. My sheet DPS on tornado shot is 31 million. 31,000 per totem. That doesn't count point blank, doesn't count enemy being shocked or anything like that. You can see it's just a matter of using frenzy to, I nearly died there, using frenzy to get your charges up and apply your curse, which is elemental weakness. I do have that in a cast on crit setup, so it'd be frenzy, cast on crit, elemental weakness, and power charge on crit. I do have it also summoning my ice golem, and I'll show you my top end DPS here in a second when I use my Veil Haste. Alright, so we're looking at 62,000k DPS per totem, and again, not counting point blank, not counting the shocks, etc. So, it's a pretty simple build. Right now I am on Biscos. If I wanted more DPS or more survivability, I'd get rid of Biscos and Gold Worm and my Venters, even though it's pretty decently rolled. But I have a lot of other things going on with the build that I could discuss if you're interested. I will say that I did recently level up my Enlighten to level 3, and I veiled +1 to 4. So that felt really good, and it allows me to run Grace with Wrath. So that's normally 50% reserved auras. If you're not doing that, you could use Purity Aura or Herald of Thunder, Herald of Ice. It doesn't really matter. I would recommend Thunder over Ice myself. I do have a 2-socket Tomb Fist. I've got several similar looking Abyss Jewels. Not too great. A lot of room for improvement there. The enchantment is really great quality of life for clear speed. It's not necessary for the build, but it's necessary for the build. I mean, if you're making currency, save up for an enchantment. You can put that on Starconies or have it on Devotos. Anything you want really. A rare helm would be fine. Pretty self-explanatory. My links are range attack totem, tornado shot, slower proj, added cold, added lightning, and elemental damage with attacks. I would say if you wanted to bump your DPS a little more, I would take off slower projectiles. Whoops, no wonder I can't do anything. I'm in this menu. I would take off slower projectiles for damage on full life, but this is more consistent, and so that's quite fine in my mind. I do use cast when damage taken, Mortal Call. I have an Enduring Cry, Veil Haste. Enduring Cry is nice because it gives me Tailwind, which is 1000 evasion as well as movement speed because of Queen of the Forest and Tailwind. And so yeah, let's take a look. We do use Soul of Lunaris as our god of choice to support, say, or as our faction. Avoiding projectiles that have chained are doubly good if you're using totems because you have conduits now that prevent damage to you. 10% flat chance to avoid projectiles, quite nice as well. That's nothing to scoff at. And then Severed, after you've been hit, additional chance to dodge attacks and spells is nice, but it's not game breaking. I do use Soul of Rislatha for the most part, just for the convenience it affords me. I'm on 1 health flask. If I run into maps that say have no regen, I'll swap out my Chemist Jade for oh, it's right here, for a hollowed flask, hybrid flask. Stygian Belt, you want to get reduce flash charges allows me to say use this 3 times. Oh wait, oh, what am I doing? 1, 2, 3, which is quite nice. You saw the build in action, but this is on Gold Worm, so you could get more movement speed here. Devotos would be more movement speed. You get movement speed in a couple other places, but you got 48% movement speed with Grace. If I pop all my flasks and get Tailwind going, I'm up to 192. You can get quite a bit higher than that if you're actually pushing for it. I do have a pair of 7 League Steps. They're really fun to use, but not important to the build, especially if you're trying to make currency. You'd probably rather have quantity, because that 200 move speed is really a decent amount to just book it through maps. My tree looks as such. I would say for your ascendancy, Fast and Deadly is your biggest value node in my opinion. Even though Gathering Woods is fantastic and the Tailwind is a great boost, it's a % more multiplier, which I was told affects your animations when it comes down to attacking and stuff as well, attack speed and so forth, but it doesn't register on your tooltip movement speed, so it's hard to say, or maybe it does, I don't know. In any case, but I would take Fast and Deadly first, and then I would probably go into Ricochet if you're leveling this through the main quest. Ricochet is a great clear speed boost and a momentum boost, so you can start leveling a lot faster. Gathering Winds would be probably the last thing I take because it benefits increasingly from what movement speed you already have. That evasion is really nice for leveling too, but I personally prefer offense over defense while I'm leveling. And further towards that end, I usually would take one of these routes, damage or projectile, attack speed or projectile nodes to here before I come down. I might actually come to Aspect of Eagle. This might be my first several nodes just for faster DPS. I use a couple Abyss, like I said, jewels on my tree as well as in my gear. So 5 total Abyss jewels because of the 2 socket, Tomb Fist, and Stygian. Like I said, Point Blank is an excellent more multiplier for your damage. So it ends up being fantastic because it multiplies. Well, you put 2 totems down, each getting 50% more damage. It's pretty convenient. It has counterintuitive non-synergy with King of the Hill. King of the Hill is knocking things back. I would say don't even bother with King of the Hill, except that crit chance is great, and the knockback is a fantastic survivability boon for you because it's a stun essentially. You can fight the Roa boss and just let your totems knock him back permanently with crits. So that's quite nice. Frenzy charges are great. I do take frenzy charges wherever I can get them, so I'm up to 6. There's one here, one here, one up here. Life, for obvious reasons. I do come up for Art of the Gladiator, this life node section here, which is quite nice because the evasion is great. And then I do like all the attack speed I get here as well. Fury Bolts is strength. You need the strength. Accuracy rating's nice. Projectile damage nice. And since I'm on a kind of a quantity trip, I would take Loth and Chain. If you don't need to, by all means don't. You can also use a Purity, or you can just have better gear. That's fine. Life. I took this movement speed and attack speed node. Don't need to, but why not? Acrobatics, highly recommend. Penetration nodes, highly recommend. Critical strike chance and multiplier nodes, highly recommend. So that's what you'll see throughout my tree. Here's more penetration. Here's multiplier and crit chance, life. And then I come up here, I'm short on intelligence for the most part, so this little stretch of 40 intelligence, bringing me to Throat Seeker, Arcing Blows, and Crackling Speed is a really high value bang for your buck in my view. So yeah, it's a really intuitive build. It's fun to play if you like to clear fast. If you like to stack quantity, you could be using Sedemus Touch. I don't know, Brandis Blazon if you were so moved. Double Venters. You could get all your if you used a rare belt here, you could get all your resist from assuming you're wealthy. Really nicely rolled resist venters with a nice triple resist belt would cover all your resist needs, and then you could focus on quantity in every spot otherwise, which would just be these two, I guess, and Biscos. Not sure about Biscos if it's that important to the build, but since I am using Windripper and some other quantity items, I figure I may as well just throw it in there. It's getting less and less desirable, obviously, as the game goes on, because too many people just automatically use it. It's too ubiquitous for the league. Queen of the Forest, for obvious reasons, that movement speed. It's the reason I get so much movement speed, and the reason why Tailwind is worthwhile. If you're using Tailwind, use Queen of the Forest. Maybe Bronze Lithe, I guess, but I don't know. I don't really... I guess I haven't experimented around with that yet, so that might be something worthwhile. If you are not interested in the zoom aspect of the game and want a little bit more survivability, you could go Belly of the Beast. You could even go with a Calm's Heart, because you could 6-socket, 6-link your bow and use this 4-link elsewhere. I would then probably have to lose some nodes. Here's an extra node I might not use Enduring Cry, or yeah, so, or this Portal Gem. So that would free up a little bit of space, but it's I don't know. I'd recommend a 6-link Queen of the Forest over anything. But if you are trying to tackle endgame, you can also consider going hard on evasion and dodge chance and take Yuri's Ire, which adds quite a decent little boost of cold damage DPS for you, for whatever that's worth. I don't really worry about that since I'm scaling lightning primarily. But that 10 flat chance to dodge spell damage and attack damage is nice. If you do that route, I would go all the way into phase acro and maybe even use Etsuri's Step. Etsuri's Step are these boots. They've got a chance to dodge spell damage, movement speed, life, and evasion rating. The evasion rating is quite nice with that movement speed. That's what makes these so good. You get quite a bit of movement speed from them. I can just demonstrate because of Queen of the Forest and such. So I got 48 standing in town. Actually, I better de-link Grace or deactivate Grace. So 29 becomes 53. 4% on top of the 30, right? Did I do that right? Wait, how does that happen? Oh, right, this has 10%, so to know that for fact. Okay, so from 18 to 53. Yeah, it's more like it. So, and that's not even quality though. The kind of flasks I use are generally centralized around the notion of going fast. So I've got Alchemists of Adrenaline. This is a pretty nicely rolled flask. It's worth a little bit, I'm sure, because it's hard to get the Alchemist with a nice Adrenaline roll. Similar, I've got another Alchemist of Adrenaline, perfectly rolled Stibnite, which has a 100% increased evasion rating as well. 3,000 evasion and 93% increased evasion rating. And that's how I'm getting so much movement speed with Queen of the Forest and with pardon me, Tailwind. Diamond Flask, for obvious reasons. You have to get that freeze and chill somewhere, so that's where I put it. You can kind of switch around what kind of prefixes and suffixes you use, and where you use them. And then I would recommend, probably instead of increased life recovery rate, well, this isn't a bad flask, but if you were, say, using damage on full life, I would recommend using an instant flask, or at least a bubbling, which I think is the one that has kind of a hybrid thing going on, where it regenerates some and gives you an instant regeneration as well, or health as well. I already talked about the different helms you can use. I talked about the different rings. I mean, for rings, you want flat lightning damage. This is just kind of like a 5 chaos ring I bought just to cover my requirements. I need a lot of cold resist, so that's where I got it. But on a ring you would want flat lightning damage, you'd want weapon elemental damage if you could get it, life, and then some nice resists, or a pretty well rolled accuracy suffix would be nice as well. Have haven't really demonstrated too much. That was just an un-ID'd blue, so I could run another just to, I don't know, show it off one more time. This build is fine up into red maps. I'll show you my atlas. It's all been done with this build. Where so far? Oh, where the fuck is my press G? Okay, so this is my atlas right now. I got 135 out of 157. It's not bad. Still working on getting some of these loose ends tied up, and then I'll pursue the end game content, and I'll probably make some videos of that too. This build has successfully completed Shaper. I took my second try ever on Shaper with this build, and I got it. Dropped the sword, and then just never ran Shaper again. I was during Harbinger, and I was just not interested, even though it was so easy to acquire all those maps. It was like the least profitable thing to do was to farm Shaper, kind of for that reason, because of how accessible it was. So I just farmed maps and collected beachheads and all that jazz, which was highly profitable for me. So this is not a budget variation of this build. I'd say for budget options, definitely take the Tempest, or level with Stormcloud into Tempest. That is a faded version of Stormcloud, which is a flat lightning bow that deals no physical damage. But when you fade it, you get 100% increased effective lightning damage, or increased damage with lightning. So that's really nice if you're rocking Wrath, and flat lightning jewels, abyss jewels, etc. So if you are on a budget still, you don't need the +1 arrow skirmish. That's what I've got. But honestly, as I've played this build for so long, those at most that quiver will be worth 1x, and it hasn't been worth an X in the last like 3 leagues. It's like I'm pretty sure I actually bought this +1 quiver for 5 chaos this league. It was less than 10, I know that, I just don't remember because it was so inconsequential. So not a lot of people using skirmish, not a lot of people using ranged attack totem, keeping the prices down, making it a little bit more attractive. If that changes, maybe there'll be different strategies to take while you're leveling, or as an alternative into endgame before you can get there. I mean, you could always just use skirmish without that without that implicit, but it's cheap, so just get it. This is really expensive. I found a doctor card and threw 2.5x, well no, just 2x in a doctor card to buy this when it was 9.5x listed. So these are really expensive at the start of a league. As the league goes on, they'll drop a little bit. You could probably get a white base with 2 tornado shot projectiles at this stage of the league for like 2-3x. So Windripper, like I said, yeah, the alternative is the Tempest. But yeah, so this was about 3x. This was about like 9.5x. This I linked myself, but it was about 25, 26 chaos. 5 chaos. I divined this. This dropped for me. I bought this probably a little overpriced at like 20 some chaos, but that was early, and quantity is something that people tend to try to rush. Again, this was probably like 5 chaos. A little underpriced in my mind because of the reduced charges are pretty important to have on a Stygian. And this one I bought for like 2x. Which I thought was a steal because it's perfectly rolled. And so yeah, so the total net cost of this build, including abyss jewels, might be something like 15 or 20x, but you could bring that down considerably if you aren't running this, if you are using a Tempest, if you use Sedemas instead of Tomb Fist. You know, these kinds of things are easy ways to cut down on the cost. I do recommend, like I said, 6-League Queen of the Forest, best in slot, bar none, inarguably strongest if you're going Deadeye and using totems. Well, if you value clear speed. Okay, if you value movement and clear speed while you're farming, so it's a map clearing best in slot. Don't really know what else can be said, so with that, I'll just let you guys enjoy the game. Peace.